and welcome back to another episode of D54. I'm Amit, and I'm joined by Dennis.
Hello.
And joined by Sunny.
Hey everyone, good to be here.
And good to see you guys, because we are live on video, people. So if you've been watching, if you've been listening to this podcast on Spotify or Apple, or if you've been listening to our YouTube audio links, come and see us. We're here.
This is what we look like.
No more hiding.
No.
But it's a nice little medium for us because we're going to be much more interactive, looking to engage with people much more. So, this is the future. So today we're reviewing maybe one of our most deepest, impactful movies that we've seen, Gargi, the Tamil language 2022, I guess you call it thriller, legal case drama. So, we got some experience in talking about legal stuff because we got Mr. Sunny in the room, our resident specialist.
Pretend lawyer, yeah.
So, not just that. So, coming back to the courtroom after Jana Gana Mana, that was not too long ago. So, but geez, man, this, even though they had very similar sort of, I guess, scenarios, man, these movies felt worlds apart. Just in terms of how they sort of went about, I guess their portrayal of the situation. Let's sort of start with that, like we did last time, man. We talked a little bit about the subject matter. Very, very serious case. Something that I don't think we see too much of, especially in Western cinema. I wouldn't think so. I can't recall too much stuff about child rape. It's pretty extreme topic, man. So what did you guys, I'll check it to you first, Sunny. What did you think about sort of this being played out again and the heaviness of it and all that?
Yeah, look, this is a movie that I went in cold to watch, so I blame you, Army, because I was not prepared for what I was about to watch on screen. But look, it is a topic that is obviously
technical issues there with Sunny. I think he's just dropped out of the call. We can't hear him. You back? Hello?
Here he is.
Yep, you're back.
Welcome back.
All right. Okay. Do I just keep going?
Yeah, keep going. It's live.
Cool. All right. Look, if I had to choose a topic that I kind of would be reticent to watch a movie about, this would be at the top of that list because child sexual abuse of a 9-year-old is as troubling a subject as I could imagine. Like, it's not something I'd ever seen, as you're saying in Army, discussed in Western cinema. It can sometimes be a peripheral topic that informs how someone in their adulthood is reacting to certain things. But for it to be the central part of a movie and to not only depict it, albeit in a subtle way and in a non kind of not a shock value, it's done quite well. But to address it and see visualizations of it is obviously very troubling. And then to also deal with the immediate aftermath of it. I've never seen it being done. And it is really subtly done. And what I really appreciated about this film was, despite the fact it had such a heavy topic, I thought it still had a degree of sensitivity, and it kind of veered away from giving black and white responses to the scenario. There was no one in this that was kind of wholly bad nor wholly good, I think, except maybe the central character of Gargi, who is definitely kind of the heroine of this film. But it avoided kind of painting very black and white pictures of the people involved. I also thought it was remarkable because it gave perspectives on people who are associated with what had happened that I would just never think to explore how they would feel. And I thought one example of that is the victim's father. I thought the perspective that he was able to provide is something that I would never have thought to kind of understand. And he has some of the most heartbreaking scenes in this film, I think, and we can maybe talk about that a little bit later. But look, really difficult subject matter. I thought it was handled really well. And I think one of the things it does really well is it never shies away from the subject matter. It kind of reminds you that, hey, what we're talking about here is an act of violence against a 9-year-old. It lingers on certain things for that just 1 or 2 seconds more than you would ever be comfortable kind of lingering on a thing. You know, the shaking of the hands of the girl as the act is happening. It goes back to that a few times and you stay with it. And I think it's done as well as it could be without having that shock value element to it. But it's still unsettling and you're forced to constantly reside in that, which I think is such a bold choice for a director to go with because it's an uncomfortable subject for everyone.
Mm.
So look, those are my initial thoughts on the heaviness of the subject matter, but also I think also the fact that it's handled pretty delicately.
Yeah. Before I check it too, Dennis, the one thing that this movie does, I thought, was like, unlike, I guess, a lot of these sort of dramas or, that we've seen before, it brings you really close to the victims and the scenarios. It's an extremely intimate movie. We are literally on the back of Gargi, the central character. She carries us through the movie and through the emotions that we have to go through. And you're right, from the characters that we go through with the father, especially the victim's father, the kid itself, even though she doesn't have much dialogue, but just the scenes that they show of her, it's pretty disturbing, man. They almost push it as far as you can push it. Like, I don't know if they could even show any more than that without sort of just, being any more blatant. So extremely nuanced, extremely layered in its approach as well, which we'll definitely touch on to each sort of character study. But Dennis, like, I know this is definitely one that you would have felt this one, man, with your daughter and everything, man. So how was this?
Probably one of the hardest movies I think I've ever had to watch. It was it was a tough watch. I thoroughly I can't really top what Sonny said. Like that, they I think they approached the topic super sensitively. They extremely bold choice to go with that as a subject matter. I would say, I would challenge any Hollywood producer to take on that subject matter and do it in a way that respects the sensitivity around the topic as well as that movie does.
Agreed.
And I don't think I've quite seen a movie that has handled a subject like that done as well ever before. It is absolutely in my top 5 movies now, or top 10 movies that I will never watch again, ever. 100%.
Completely fair enough, man.
There's other movies up there like Grave of Fireflies, which is a Ghibli movie, which talks about the suffering of children in the context of war. This is like right next to that movie, as far as I'm concerned. It is a movie that I would tell anyone to watch, but I personally, now that I've seen it, probably can't bring myself to go through it again. The only counter to that would be it is a movie that I would like to have my wife sit down and watch and things like that as well, and I'd watch it with her then, but I would be reluctant because if you're any kind of human and you can empathize, or it's not humans, if you're any kind of father, you will empathize deeply with. I'll clarify that. If you're a father of a daughter, you will deeply empathize with that scenario, and it would take a very special kind of man to not want to just tear those men apart with their bare hands, because there is something around the sanctity, the innocence, when you're raising a daughter, it's not just a physical being that you're bringing into the world. There is a specialness there that needs to be preserved, and there's a beauty in that innocence, and at some point you're going to have to take that away from them. But it needs to be done progressively. It needs to be done sensitively. It needs to be done intelligently. And it needs to come from parents in order for that trust to be maintained. It is hard enough to build trust with your children to the level where they know that they can come to you with problems, that they can come and talk to you and maintain that. If a scenario like that happened, it's hard to talk about, but if a scenario like that happened, you'd want to be at some point think that you could step in and help, but the reality is in many cases it doesn't work out that way. That's damaging beyond repair. Like that's irreparable in terms of the victim's psyche, the trust between her father or the people around her, and of men in general, if it is men or women in general, depending on who the perpetrator is. Like it's difficult for me to talk about. Like, but it's because it's close to home. I say two things. I'm a passive man. I don't seek trouble. I don't seek vengeance. I don't do anything. But if anyone ever came into my home with the intent of hurting my family, then they would see a wholly different side of me, and there would be probably no reservations at all. And watching the movie, you run through those scenarios in your head. Like, what if this happened to me? What would I do? How would I protect her? How would I, how would she see me from here on in? Like that kind of thing. Like it would just be, it's hard. It's really hard. It's hard to talk about. Like I'm trying to keep the emotions in check, but it's very hard to talk about. Yeah,
man. It's definitely one of the most serious movies I've sort of seen in that sense. The subject matter it took was extremely bold. Didn't really hold back at all, I thought. And its approach was like, one thing I did want to sort of mention was like the approach they took was so raw and real. Like they took out all the drama in this movie. They tried to make it as almost like, honestly, this was almost like a documentary in some ways.
Yeah.
Like that's how sort of close they played it.
Grounded.
Yes.
It's such a difference to how Jana Gana Mana kind of with similar thing, well, which is much more noisy and loud, but this is very grounded and real.
Yeah.
No, exactly right, man. It was just like, they took away all the bells and whistles, and even from like, from the casting point of view, right? Like they had basically they took people that look like normal human beings, like I mean that in a sense that the actress who was phenomenal, Sai Pallavi,
absolutely,
incredible performance to show that level of emotion throughout and the trouble she went through. But I guess just physically the way she looks, it was more I guess what you wouldn't associate with like a big time superstar or a big time Bollywood actress or Tollywood actress or Hollywood actress. Like it's somebody that's like from down your street that you would see. And even the lawyer, like someone like that, played by Indrans. I'm not gonna try to say the surname unfortunately, but played by Kali Venkat. Not man. He was stuttering. Has like a speech impediment. Dark skinned, plumpy, like and he's like basically next to her the whole journey.
Yeah.
I had a thought there. I'll apologize if I break mode here, but I was hoping at the end that they'd actually get married.
You're hoping that?
I was hoping that because Sheila, at this first sign of trouble, yet this guy turns up against all odds and just stood by her. He had nothing to gain, nothing to lose, and it really shows a depth of character that can be found in people that you wouldn't expect them to be found in, but the people where you would expect depth of character to arise are full of self-interest and will and stay clear. And I think if I can sort of still spin this as the subject matter, I think there's an important key layering of this film. It's not just, I mean, the subject that it's centered around is very important, and as we discussed, but there are multiple layers here on peeling back the facade of standard perception. Everything from, she utterly believed in her father.
Yeah,
he was the absolute sun of her universe. Like there's nothing, right? And then it was peeled away. That's sort of one of the other extremes there. Is that relationship being shattered at the end, and I don't think I've ever heard anyone cry as sincerely as she cried on that bed once it dawned on her that it was her dad. Do you know what I mean? Whatever she was feeling inside, like as a real human being, like that I don't think I've seen anyone cry on screen like that before. The peeling away of like expecting people who have always been there to support your family to be there again, and them not being there, and like all her pillars of support were slowly just stripped away from her, and she found one in the most unexpected of places from one of the most unassuming, unexpected of side characters that just happened to be standing there trying to, encourage his boss to take a stand, and was kept on getting shut down. Now, and I thought his character development was really brilliant, like really brilliant. Yeah. And I was a little bit sad that he kind of disappeared at the end piece. I was really hoping that they would be bonded in a bit of a better way, because I think, if there's any man more deserving of a hand, like he'd probably be it. But there was a lot of stripping away of expectations around court, around relationships, around families, and it wasn't like a deliberate, we're subverting your expectations because it was, this is the reality of things. The people who you have around you, your system of trust and security, and your foundation can sometimes be monsters, and that's just the truth of it.
Yeah, it's really told a good story about just you never know what you don't know. Like that's because we'll talk a little bit about the twist at the end, but just about like you would never the way the story was told. You're on her side the whole time, but she does do a great job of just having like her own sort of in subtle ways. Like, is he not telling the truth or something? Like when she goes to the prison and she's there, but she doesn't want to show his face because I don't know, maybe she secretly thinks that, or what if she's looking at the face of her dad who's actually a rapist now. So this movie, it did a lot of really good things. But we'll touch on the lawyer a bit later. But Sunny, what did you think about sort of how this movie was? Because I think stylistically this movie was pretty different. We talked a little bit how it's grounded, but just in terms of some of the ways they shot the scenes and stuff like that. What were your initial impressions about that, man?
Look, but I think 2 points on this. Firstly, I thought this told such a riveting story and such a real story that it didn't need kind of too many flourishes in terms of cinematography. It could have done the most vanilla job and I would have still been there because it's told such a riveting story with believable characters, and I want to get to understand what was going to be the end outcome of all of this. But despite that, I thought it did have some really creative flourishes throughout the film in terms of engaging the audience and keeping them hooked, even though, they were always going to be, but it created kind of a additional dimension to the film, I guess. The thing that kind of sticks in my mind most are those flashback sequences, right? Which go to black and white when we're talking about kind of I guess she was subject to, I guess, another male character who wanted to abuse her in her younger years. And, they're told in black and white flashbacks. And I thought that was really beautifully done. I think the second scene in particular where the teacher, who is, the potential predator here, asks her to go and get the ink from the top of the cabinet. That is in its kind of portrayed so brilliantly and so convincingly. And the black and white adds to almost the frightening and terrifying nature of that, because it's a world that seems kind of devoid of any joy because it's a threatening world to her now. And, she's grabbing the ink bottle and he arrives behind her and she drops the ink because she's so startled, and there's the breaking of the glass and the black ink just kind of flowing across the screen. And I thought that was just really beautifully done as well. Maybe, reading into it, but maybe the shattering of her innocence or identifying of a real threat to her character and a threat to her youth that she shouldn't be having to deal with. And then in the final of those flashback sequences, you guys might have observed that it's all black and white except for her dress, which turns yellow as he starts commenting on it. And that kind of harkens back to her talking to her sister, I think, at the start of the film about why you're wearing a yellow dress. Right. Yeah. So I thought that was beautifully done. And some of those flourishes, I think, really add to the film without kind of taking you out of the world of the film and just keep the audience engaged. So I thought it did a terrific job in terms of those flourishes as well.
Yeah. The thing with this movie is it was so dense. I was like wondering how are they going to make this movie actually, entertaining? How are they going to keep you along the ride? Obviously, the performances were great, and that was almost enough to carry you through. But I think a lot of credit has to go to the director.
100%.
Totally, yeah.
Gautham, I think his name is Gautham.
Did he write it as well?
Gautham, I think so. Yes, he was a writer. Gautham Ramachandran. So he was, a lot of credit has to go to him because the way they sort of take you through the scene, like, there's I thought there was a lot of intention in everything they did. You could see the framing, like if you pause on any sort of scene, you can tell there's composition, like people are positioned in the right places. They're always framed around things. There was a lot of intent with that. The pacing was there. They had some scenes, I think the media scene at the start when they're introducing us to the media storm and you're just going through, the media bend and all that stuff. And you're like, wow, this is actually a circus.
Yeah.
They did a lot of cool stuff like that, I thought. Whenever they sort of showed different perspective of, the cops or, be over the shoulder sometimes and the close-ups and zoom-ins. They're really, really creative. So I thought it was a really good way to keep it because I was like, man, this is a really serious topic. There's not going to be much. It's going to be tense the whole way around. How are you going to keep us engaged? It's not really, it becomes sort of like a thriller, but it's not really a traditional thriller. But I think just because of that, there's not much comedy relief in this movie. So how do you just, as a viewer, just stay engaged with this? So a lot of it, I think, has got to do with just the brilliant filming techniques. Very creative.
Stunning.
It's
yeah.
The color palette's all toned down. It's brilliant. But Dennis, what do you think, man? Just about sort of how this movie was shot.
I would say that again, if Hollywood are looking to reset, they need to look at these kind of movies to relearn the craft. I haven't seen any of this gentleman's movies before, and I'll probably go back and have a look at some of them because I think the timing. There was some flourishes in there, like there was a bit of a montage while they were doing their research on the back of the bike and doing this, and then there's a soundtrack over the, again, one thing that I miss growing up here is a deep, rich culture. Like the country here in Australia, we're like 200 odd years ago, it was established, right? And it is now a melting pot of a lot of beautiful cultures, which is awesome, but it means we don't have a foundational basis here. So when I'm watching movies like this, I get not just a stylized, I don't get the sense that I'm watching a stylized version of something. This is New York life, Sex and the City. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm actually really getting immersed into the realism of what it's like to live in a shanty, what it's like to live in these streets. The courtroom wasn't all like wood grained and like 100 people sitting in the back and people everywhere and coppers and stuff like that. No, it was realistic, and it generally just comes down to witnesses, prosecutor, defendant, judge, and the people recording the proceedings. And half the lights were off. Do you know what I mean? But even that scene, I was on edge. I'm like, the way that the dynamic between the prosecutor and the defendant, what's the word?
Yeah, defense lawyer.
There you go.
Depends slow. There we go. You know, you could see his confidence was low, but you could see that he was not a stupid man. But because of his appearance, because of he gets a bit flustered and he stutters and things like that, there was an automatic attribution to the fact that he was dumb and he didn't know what he was talking about. Everyone's like, he has never had a case. He's never won or lost a case. Doesn't make him incompetent. The man has obviously studied and he's still very intelligent, but because of his demeanor, he is pigeonholed. And I think that was a really brilliant depiction of that. And slowly but surely, the level of his intelligence is revealed time and time again as he starts to pick through the holes in things. And that's why I think I loved him. I thought it was great. And if you're looking for the sort of that he wasn't necessarily a comedic offset to the main character, but you know, when you're talking about balancing personalities and traits and things to really create a great dynamic between two of the primary characters, this movie is a great masterclass for that, because I think they did that exceptionally well. Again, put that against Thor, and it's like, wow, you know what I mean? There's the contrast. Just using it as like a pro case versus like a bro case. Do you know what I mean? Like it's shit compared to this, which is absolutely golden. But the music for me, I get really immersed into. You know, I love it. I love. Why did she put the paste on the girls' foreheads when they walked out? Like, what is that? What is that white paste they put above the bindi? And I'm like, what is that? That's awesome. Like, I have no idea what this is, but it's beautiful. and then, I never understood the head shake in Indian culture. Like, I never understood it. But I think this movie has given me an indication. Like, I think I've learned through this as I was watching, because all of a sudden I was paying really close attention to because I like observing body language, and this is a whole new world for me. This is like, wow, this is awesome. This is great. So I'm watching and I'm trying to understand, because there's so much to be said with that body language. Like, I'm reading subtitles here. I can't speak the language, so I'm watching for visual cues and I'm reading the subtitles. And the acting of everybody in that film, there's no one in there that I felt was like just a cast local. You know what I mean? They may have been, but they did an excellent job. But the sort of the head shake was, and correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of like it can be it's an acknowledgement, but it can be either a positive or a negative kind of, I'll do it, fine, or okay, I'll do it. You know what I mean? And it's like,
pretty much,
it's kind of like, it can be interpreted contextually depending. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And okay. So you know what I mean? And so that I was looking at all that kind of stuff, and paying close attention to just the way that they shot the scenes, the way they shot the houses, the way they shot everything, like really gave it a real grounded effect. And the flourishes were put in there, I think, were timed in a way. Like, I remember thinking when they were doing that, so they had the score and there was no script. It was just the montage piece.
Yeah,
I think that was a deliberately timed pressure release of tension for the audience, because it is a heavy subject, as we sort of mentioned. I don't think I would have made it through the whole movie if there wasn't that sort of visual interlude where I was just treated to a bit of cinematic artistry, for want of a better word. Do you know what I mean? Where they kind of just like, okay, we need to give our audience a bit of a moment. Let's do something. But it also built tension, because you could see they were doing a lot too. Like, it was a release in one area, but it reset them up for the next scene, in that they'd done a bunch of work, they'd learned a bunch of things, and it was all implicit. You know what I mean? Like, I thought that was great too. Very clever, very, very clever. And that's just touching on a couple of things. Yeah.
No. The one thing I would want to mention about that, the thing they did great about setting that releasing that tension is they don't let the characters sort of do that all the time. So like, there's this pretty small scenes when like the lawyer Kelly, I don't know, it's Influence. Influence. He's I think there's times when he's trying to be jovial. He's trying to like make jokes.
Yeah,
but she's just having none of that.
No, she's not having any of that.
Yeah.
No. And there's even times when I think it was a tea scene. No, not the tea scene. One of them where she's like genuinely. This was kind of a funny scene when
I know
talking about the he's talking about you have to be like Sherlock Holmes plus Vijay Mallya. Vijay Mallya was like a big business tycoon in India. He was owned some beer and some airlines and all this stuff. So he's trying to explain to her, and she's genuinely like, "No, tell me." So, yeah. And she's like trying to be like, "Tell me." When he tells her, and she's just like, walks away, and it's like,
for this. Yeah.
Because she's like she's so intense that she doesn't let up, and it makes sense. Like for her character, like I'm happy they didn't like compromise the character for that. Like yes, the audience need a break, but don't make it at the cost of a character who at this time is shown.
That's right.
Absolutely serious. She's not been barely cracked a smile. This is the most intense situation she's been in. The whole one, her father's going to be accused of this, and she's trying to disprove that. Her whole life is crumbling in front of her.
Yeah.
So they're not compromising characters for that, which I absolutely loved. Like I love when movies have that commitment. But I'll check it to you, Sunny, man. Did you have any other what do you think about? I think we can move on to sort of some of the different topics. But do you have any thoughts around the characters, or maybe how the I was going to talk about there are different perspectives about the the daughter / the police system, the law. Where do you want to go with, man?
Well, one additional thing is I was listening to Dennis, who's talking about like the realism. Both of you guys touched on the realism of the world. Something I'm realizing more as I'm watching these films generally is I like to understand the rhythms of people's lives before or during when they're thrust into whatever the central drama of the film is. And I just thought maybe the first 5 sequences of this film, 5 minutes, were done so well because you get a really good sense for her character. You have her teaching at a school. You have her being quite a strict person. Someone comes in asking for water and she kind of quite rudely shushes him away, right? She's like, get out of here. You get the sense that she's a very organized and structured person. Then you see her, eating her food while marking exams with her fellow teachers. Then it goes to, I think, her waiting for the bus, having her earphones on, falling asleep in the bus as we all sometimes do. Then walking to her house and having little interactions with people on her way home. And I just thought these are really nice flourishes to ground this character and make her feel like a real and tangible person who is living in India at this point in time, right? And it has that added benefit of her world is about to go into chaos, so you're able to appreciate the stark contrast of this ordered life versus, the chaos that's about to ensue her and how that really does overwhelm her. But that's something I look for increasingly in films because I think it shows a real appreciation for the character and fleshing it out. And, props to the great performance by the lead actress here, but I also think that that's great writing and great directing that you would spend time on those additional moments, right, to really build the character and the realism of the world you're about to get into. So that's just something I want to add and something I appreciate more as I'm watching these films because it shows that these characters are not just a canvas for getting across a moral message or driving an interesting plot forward. They are real people. And I really appreciate that.
Can I build on that just a little bit as well? Because they did such an amazing job of establishing her character quickly without exposition or fluff. To take it another layer, we also learned that she was engaged. And from that dialogue, we learned the most important piece. He tried to have a joke about, that the dowry was required. And the first thing she did was got upset and defended her father's efforts. And had already done enough. She didn't take any shit from that. You know what I mean? And, we've all been in relationships. We know what it feels like to make a joke and it not go down very well. That's a scenario that on the other end I can relate to very often. But right then and there, it that's to me that was the anchor point for almost the entire film, because right then and there I learned that she was willing to defend her father even over the I'm still learning about the cultural sort of nuances of what's going on there, but I would assume that an arranged marriage, and if a dowry is required or asked for, if it was serious enough, the family would probably come to the table with it. So for her to like completely shut it down, put a stop to it, after we'd just seen her shut down the dude who made too much noise, shutting down a kid for still right, and you know what I mean? Like we established already that she was a firm, very astute woman that was not going to take any shit, but still a woman. Like she still was very much enamored by her betrothed and all that kind of stuff. So there was you could see that vulnerability and that sensitivity there, but she wasn't going to take any shit, and I think that's good. That was very, very well done as far as I was concerned. And then we could just get on with the movie because she'd already established, done.
Right. Yeah. Basically, I think I'd marked it in like the first 20 minutes. I think in 20 minutes, that's when sort of they get the phone call and then she goes to the apartments. And at that time, you have a full picture up of this character and who she is and what she's living
exactly.
Where is she on the hierarchy in her family? She seems to be above her mother, taking the lead on a lot of things. She's obviously very helpful. She helps that neighbor of hers or whatever. So they've established so many character traits. And you're right. I love characters that are complex and deep, and you can look into, not sort of one-dimensional like we get a lot of the times. Honestly, a lot of Hollywood stuff. But I was like, before moving on though, man, I gotta say, like, these movies, they're all like, it's really long. They're all like 2.5 hours, 3 hours long, and it takes a lot of effort to sort of put together a comprehensive story from start to finish for that long. Like, we've seen so many movies where they can't do that for like an hour, and like, it feels like an hour 20 is like too long. We feel like we should cut out fat from there, but these kind of movies are like, I didn't feel like any moment was like you could cut out anything really. Maybe a few things here and there, but on the overall, it was just like, again, a lot of respect to, the writing, the acting, the directing, everything, because it's much tougher to put together a longer movie like that. And they do it all the time. It's just normal.
But I would say, if I could say though, the integrity of the film itself is really grounded in the fact that the film itself is grounded in reality.
Yes.
Even though it was a hypothetical scenario, for want of a better way of putting it.
Sure.
And the actors were in the real spaces that they were acting in. And I think there is something to be said with that, between that and actors like writing big green foam things in a green room covered with green blocks, where they're just like, imagine something over there, sure, versus actually being in the courtroom, and it also really shows a dedicated, that the level of dedication and involvement of the director to ensure, quality across that scale for everything. There's deliberate times where they're happy, the music, the tone brings it down. Everything feels kind of good, and it's a classic setup for something that's going to happen, and you can kind of sense it. But I'm just enjoying the fact that I was looking, but I couldn't follow I couldn't catch the pattern wave. Like, there was no expectations here. I just did not know what was going to come around that corner. Coming back to if I can come back to the court for a second, my mind was racing. Like when the Benix, is it Benix?
Yep.
Yeah, Benix. Yep. Yeah, that is, you're right. That's a cool name. I'm like, oh wow, his whole case has been pulled apart. Is he a suspect now? Is he? Is he? Are they covering for him? Is he covering for himself? Is he fudging the lines to protect his police force? And then I was like, And then that was confirmed because one of the guards was like taking a photo of her and saying, you know, really kind of misogynist things about her while she was in a moment of family kind of grief for want of a better word. The death of her family values, I guess, was the way that I would see it. You know, and they were very insensitive to that, and which kind of only affirmed that there was like police involvement at some level, and that they were framing those guys, and there was a bigger picture here. And it wasn't like we didn't even see the other four guys. Like they were story, they were done and dusted. They were 100% convicted. That was it. We didn't even see them except when they were getting shunted through. You know, and then there was other situations where it's like, you know, was the dad involved? Was this person involved? And I was my brain was working trying to figure out. But one thing I really love was, and he says it, you know, in the courtroom, he's like, I know he's guilty. And I can't remember what he says exactly, but it's like, it doesn't matter what you think. I know goes, what you think, you know, it's what you can prove. You know, and that theme runs through everything. You know, she doesn't relent until she has factual, like absolute certainty in her mind, and she's got that through actual factual evidence that things are happening or things are proceeding in a way.
Yeah,
you know. But I actually twigged on. I don't want to spoil anything. I'll let's get to the end set before I spoil anything. But I twigged on. There was a particular scene where I twigged on and I hung on to that, and that was I was right. Like when I got to the end, but there was an absolute dead giveaway. And then it was affirmed with one of the sort of the more like emotionally intensive pieces in the courtroom that really kind of nailed it in. I'm like, okay, yep. And then I just sat back and watched it kind of play to that. I was about 80% certain that was going to be the outcome at that point.
Yeah.
We'll
check into the courtroom though, because I want to talk a little bit about the courtroom scenes.
We
got resident expert.
No, I don't have any remarkable insights on this. But
our local legislator,
I'm in the court all the time. As an accused, not as a lawyer. Not as an accused, as in just general.
But yeah, man. I just sort of like how, so, you know, we talked about Jana Gana Mana and how glamorous, you know, how glamorous that was, right? It was like this really charismatic judge, you know, who, like, you know, sort of took us along with his sort of, I guess, his sentiments and his stories about everything. Yeah. This was a completely different approach to things.
That's right.
So, man, what do you think about sort of one, you know, the court case in general? You touched a little bit on the realism, how much, you know, you think that's there. I doubt that was 100% accurate, but I think they at least made an attempt. To try and do some things. But in terms of like the engagement, like you know, as Dennis mentioned before, few characters, you know, a judge who was interestingly cast. I think I haven't seen that before in an Indian movie, especially. And it was actually pretty strategic, and it worked well. Like they actually use his identity to his advantage in that situation. But what do you think about sort of how the courtroom played out, and also like the position the law is in during the situation? This was a bit different from other ones we've seen, because we saw Jana Gana Mana and like the judge was like an idiot. So you know, that wasn't the case in this.
So I think there's so many different strands to this, because I think the legal system is brought into this film in many different ways, whether it's through the court case, whether it's through the judge, or the bar association for this state essentially recommending that no one take up the case of Gargi's father as well, and the repercussions that has. But starting at the courtroom, I thought this was one of the best representations of the procedural nature of a legal kind of drama playing out in court. There was none of that sensationalism that exists when it's just the galleries packed with media personnel, and there's just, you know, shots at the media every time something big is revealed on screen. This is a far quieter piece that really is just about two legal minds trying to get to the bottom of trying to understand what the truth is. arbitrated by a very intelligent judge, which, and Ami, you mentioned this, usually judges go two ways in films, I see. Firstly, they're either really dumb and old and just kind of let experienced state prosecutor or defense counsel run riot over them. Or secondly, they're really arrogant and dismissive of the people, usually the heroic lawyer, whoever that happens to be. Here you had the representation of a judge, putting aside the transgender element to this, who is an extremely intelligent person and represents kind of the high watermark of what a judge should be. That is someone who is authoritative, unbiased, independent, and fair-minded in how they run a court. So you have both sides of the case being, both attorneys having the chance to put forward their case. A judge who has put out of their mind what the media is saying and what the outcome the media want. Someone who has reserved judgment until they can hear the facts. And you touched on this earlier, Dennis, about someone who gives Indrans the chance to speak because they don't think the fact that he stammers or is maybe a little bit unfamiliar with court process goes to the question whether he is intelligent and has something valuable to add. So
that's right,
this is just a really brilliant depiction of what a judge should be. And I think that is a really good contrast to the other failings of the legal system that is represented in this film. And that is kind of the Bar Association or the Lawyers Association preventing defense counsels from taking up this case. That is something I can see happening, like maybe, not in all democratic countries, but that can certainly happen where taking up a case is either frowned upon or the media circus is such that no one wants to take up the case. And it's a unique perspective to think about the vulnerable person here as Gargi's father and not the victim, because everyone deserves their day in court. Everyone deserves the right to be treated as innocent until proven guilty and has the right to legal representation when it's their life on the line or, facing life imprisonment or something. And for the structures that we build to create a kind of civilized society ruled by law and order, it is completely believable that all of that collapses when you have a heinous crime like what has happened here, and that all of those support structures to essentially fall away because we have such a visceral reaction to what has happened here. You want judgment to be passed. You want justice to be swift. And if the court can't do it, members of the public will do it. And a couple of scenes go towards people trying to take retribution themselves. So I think this film shows the worst of what the legal profession could be, and that is very real as well. But then it has the counterbalance of this excellent judge who presides over this case, and then Indrans as well, who is, has nothing to gain from taking this case. He faces the vitriol and criticism of the public for doing it, but he's not in it for the money. He's not in it for the fame, but he clearly believes in the legal system. And of course, there's a degree of empathy towards the Gargi character as well. But I think he views this as someone's right to be defended until proven guilty. I think that guides his kind of motivations from the start. And the fact that he's helping Gargi is another kind of element to it, I guess. So, look, there's a lot to like about the honest portrayal of the legal system here. And look, I probably have scratched the surface, but I'll leave it there for the moment. And I might jump on the bandwagon of other comments you guys have to make as well.
Nah, that's a really good breakdown, man. I think what you said is really accurate. Like, if from what I've seen as well, I think it's just to do with the nature of the movie, but I think that's also grounded in reality, as you were saying, Dennis, as well. Like, it doesn't sort of take you out of this world.
Can I also just add?
Or, fantasize. Yeah, man.
No, go on, Ami, go on.
I was just going to say that, like, basically it doesn't add anything glamorous to it. It's, everyone is like, down to earth. And like, I think they had so many opportunities to just make it super glamorous, right? They could have made it, they should, we have a lawyer with a chip on his shoulder, they could make him the victim kind of thing and, show that the other one is bullying him or have a really arrogant, the person who's defending the victim, the father of the rape child. They could have made it so that, they're really arrogant and really young or something like that and bullying him. Nope, none of that. No. They could have made the judge, I think there's like a snappy comment that the guy says something like, if you're a normal person, you would have known what to do by now. Yeah. And, she doesn't react straight away. You see, she's just like, she raises her voice a little bit and says like, like quiet, but then she waits calmly and responds to him in one line. That's all we get. Nothing else. There's none of this, standing up and being like, I am this person, and there's none of that macho stuff. It's just, it's that's what might happen. Like, shut up. This is me. This is what I know, and that's all. Move on. So
that bit,
awesome.
I agree. That bit was one of the standouts for me, where he says it, and then she just like caught adjourned. I think she shuts it down. Like, all right, done. We're done, right? And then later on, he says she comes back and she tells the transcribers to stop typing, and she's like, "What did you say at the end before?
Yes.
I know the pain of a woman. I know where the arrogance of a man stems from. I'm the perfect person for this case. And like really puts him in his place. And I think that was. I think I was really sold on. I mean, I was already sold on her as a judge before then. The way that she completely tore through the inspector, the sub inspector, and just like, what are you stupid? Like, what were you thinking? And then her comments when the reporter, like, she puts the reporter back in her place. That kind of thing I think is really great. And I would like to see her in more movies. I think she's fantastic. And I liked it because she gave him the opportunity to sit down. He said no to water, but she ordered the water to be brought anyway, because he knows that the confidence there is not like high to say yes to something like that. So she let him sit down, take his breath, get some water, and just capture his composure a little bit, which allowed him to sort of unpick what was happening there. And from all intents and purposes, like, the case looked like had I don't know. Again, I don't want to spoil anything, but like he was doing a good job of really interrogating the integrity of the report and the case, and finding the holes and things like that. Even when everybody else around him was just saying he doesn't know what he's doing, he's not thinking, he doesn't. It's not even close. Even when she was like exhibiting a total lack of confidence in his ability and the things that he's doing, it doesn't mean that people aren't working hard up here just because you can't see. It's all that intangible, like, capabilities of being able to analyze and assess and bring in the broad picture and see how it all, and overlay it and intertwine it and hook things up and start to put it all together. And he may not be experienced, which is why he took a little bit longer. But once that information had time to incubate and sort of really come together in his mind, you could see that he was just like really sort of coming like into his own.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to go to give the dude a hug. I would have, I'd be more than happy to stand on the street and have a cup of tea with him the whole day. Do you know what I mean? Like, because the tea scene's funny because it's sort of, it shows the consistency, the level of consistency of the character portrayal. Even as a little gesture as say, would you like some tea? She's like, now's not the time for tea. And then in his character, he's trying to go, well, it's been known to calm nerves or calm tension and stuff like that, to sort of try and find some relevance to what he's trying to do for her in the situation she's in, realizing that she's in such a moment that he's got to do that in order to even get some level of, like, get through to her at some level. But the consistency of character portrayal in this is just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Can I also say, just on the courtroom scene, what I also liked was the lack of any kind of self-righteous monologues by any of the characters, right? There was no like, this is a heinous thing and it's a affront to society, or like justice is really important. There was neither of it from either side. And even the transgender element of the judge, she didn't go into any detail about it, right? It was just a comment and it was never discussed any further. I just love that because I think that's lets the audience kind of work through the issues themselves. And secondly, it's not how a courtroom runs, that people just randomly stand up and do monologues, emotive monologues on a thing. Like,
you can't handle the truth. Yeah.
Yes, stuff like that. So I really love the realism of that as well, because that's the kind of thing that immediately takes me out of courtroom drama when there are those self-righteous monologues that happen. And I love that there wasn't any of that.
Yeah. I have to 100% agree with that. And this is why I'm loving these films so much, because there's none that they just don't do it. Like, I'm sorry, but they just don't do it, and it's refreshing to watch a courtroom scene.
I think the thing is, these movies they always stay committed to their tone. So I think if they do it consistently, like in Jana Gana Mana. Like, it becomes like the whole thing becomes that, and they don't sort of back off that. If they don't do it, then they don't delve into it at all to give you that inconsistency in tone, inconsistency in character. They're very committed. They have a clear vision, and they sort of carry it through the whole way through. And again, 2 hours and a half. It's pretty impressive. But yeah, man, I think we can look at, I did want to talk about the police a little bit, but I don't know if there's too much to talk about them. Like, it just gave another fresh perspective, I thought, about, the basic position they're in, especially with justice and stuff like that. Like, at the end of the day, we're seeing Bennix, and they kind of portray him as kind of like, well, he's kind of doesn't know what he's doing at the start, and then maybe he's, as you said, conspiring. But it's a nice little, twist that they have at the end, that he was actually just looking out for the guy who he feels bad for, because he thinks that, this might slip through the justice system or something like that, because there's not enough evidence and things like that. So I just want to give that a little shout out. But maybe let's carry on. I feel like we should talk about the twist a little bit, and we've touched on it a little bit, but it's I know Dennis, you saw it coming a little bit, but this was one of the few times I think I've actually genuinely been like, okay, wow, this actually got me by surprise. Like, I thought it was going to be. But again, consistency to the tone. There's no happy endings. It's real life. All the trauma that she's been through, it's been real. It's and the reason why she was suspecting him. But were you guys surprised by this sort of twist? And I think we should talk more about the performance. This Sai Pallavi, like, at that point especially, like, it's like the performance was going great, super level, and then at the end it's just like, whoa, like, you just pulled something amazing here. The scene you mentioned before, Dennis, the one where she's just crying, that's very powerful. But even how she just turns his back on him because she knows what happened, and she's keeping a calm demeanor because she's already been through it, phenomenal.
Absolutely.
But Sunny, I'll pass it to you, man. What did you think about the whole sort of ending, the climax, the twist?
Look, you know me. I didn't know the ending of Samaritan and the twist that was going on, so I wasn't gonna figure this one out. But no, I always had a bit of a sense of unease that there was going to be something to this that was going to, I don't know, be even kind of dramatic, but also, I think, highlight a broader point that these kind of evils can be perpetrated by anyone, and that these are things that happen in society, and they happen to people. They are done by people that you would never suspect would do things like that. And I thought that was going to be one of the elements of this, and it did play out. But I can't say I saw this coming. I just always had a sense of unease that this was not an open and closed case one way or another in terms of guilt or innocence. So didn't see it coming necessarily, but wasn't entirely surprised as well that that's where it landed. I will say on the performance of the main actress here, I thought this might be the best performance I've seen all year, because I just thought it was incredibly grounded and real. And there are certain scenes that will stick with me, and it's probably the one that sticks with me most is the one you talked about earlier, Ami, about her going to visit her father with Indran's and the jail scene, right, where they're trying to get his version of events. I kind of had a different reading to what you had, Ami. I kind of thought that she couldn't look at her father because she couldn't see him in that state of helplessness and in that state of being kind of completely disheveled and defeated, because this was a person who was a strong man who had stuck up for her all of her life, and who is kind of, I don't know, the leader of the household maybe, and who her life revolved around. And she just couldn't make eye-to-eye contact with him because he was in a state where he was completely defeated, and, all of society was against him. And so instead she hides behind a wall, but she's kind of sobbing the entire time. And I thought, what an absolutely real kind of reaction that this is. I mean, we all have people in our lives that, you know, are strong or pillars of strength for us. To see them in a defeated position like that, I think it's a completely reasonable way to respond to that kind of tragedy or change in circumstance. And just how she portrayed that was so kind of lovely that it really broke my heart, that scene. And yeah, just to me highlighted just what a wonderful actress she is. And I also think she doesn't go through this movie as a strong, stoic woman. There are elements of vulnerability peppered throughout this movie. Dennis, you touched on kind of the boyfriend thing at the start where she hasn't received a call from him and she's feeling sad about it. And then the phone rings and you see kind of the joy in her face. Done very subtly, but you can see the happiness there because she's in love with someone and wants them to call and she wants to get married. You also know that throughout this film, she's in a constant state of anxiety and distress. And the only thing that is motivating her is proving the innocence of her father. There is nothing else that is kind of keeping her together but this single-minded pursuit as her world is crumbling around her. She is disheveled. She is overwhelmed. You know, there's that scene where I think Indran's fixes the light and she's in the darkness and then the light comes on because he's fixed it on his way out, right? And he's like, oh, there's a glimmer of hope there. Yeah. There's a glimmer of hope, and she needed that because she's trying to keep her family together. She's trying to protect her mum from it.
That's a powerful scene. Yeah.
It is beautifully done. And I think she's just able to, those nuances are done really well in between the kind of highly emotional scenes like the courtroom, the jail scene that I talked about earlier, and then where she's talking to the victim and the victim confirms that her father is the fifth abuser and she just bawls out crying. So yeah, just both ends of the spectrum. This is an incredible performance, and like I think this might be the best I've seen all year.
It's interesting, man. Like I don't know, like I think she's known more because I've seen a little bit of her, not particularly in movies, but she's actually like a really good dancer. That's her sort of main claim to fame. So I can't remember. She's got some crazy personal history too. Like she's apparently a doctor as well as a national dancer, as well as being able to do this. So I mean, she definitely has a look more of like a girl next door sort of, you know, that kind of character. But to lead a performance like this is exceptional, man. Just I'm blown away. Right, Sonny, it might be my favorite performance all year, and that's a big statement considering some of the great movies that we've seen from South India. To be honest, this is right up there, and it is great to see. You know, we won't touch on it too much, but just a real, true, you know, female powerful lead that you can get behind. And nothing sort of shoving in our face. But yeah, Dennis, there is sort of one scene that at the end I didn't quite appreciate. That I don't know if you guys, the end scene that felt really out of place. It was just like, you know, the journalist comes in and has something that was a bit confusing for me. Felt out of place for the movie. But look, I'm just gonna pretend like that didn't happen.
Which scene was that? Is that the end credit scene?
The epilogue where she's talking to Gargi's sister and giving her kind of the words of wisdom about being a woman.
I was like, you've already done such a great job of showing us how powerful she is. Do you really have to tell us on the phone? Like this seems a little forced. But yeah, I won't go into that too much. Dennis, I'll pass it to you, man. Like, what do you think of sort of the ending and sort of combine it with anything else you had to sort of, you know, say about this? Because there's a few things before we get on to our ratings, of course.
Yep. So, I'm just moving the mic away, to keep it consistent. All right, yeah. So I would say that if you want to, it's a difficult thing because this is the kind of movie, out of context, I would show my daughter on what the strength and the vulnerability of a woman looks like. Yep. It's just done so beautifully. Because women can be strong. They can exhibit strength under duress. They have measures of endurance and pain tolerances that men can't achieve. Yep. We're not built that way. And I think these things are all to be celebrated. And I'll come back to the end sequence because I found that actually quite important for the context of the movie. But maybe not the way that you might look at it, not you guys indirectly, but just in putting the two next to each other. But there are things that women are and can achieve that is, and I think this movie exhibits that wonderfully and consistently and beautifully. The mothering nature and the simplicity of her mother's nature, juxtaposition to her, she wears the weight of responsibility in the family because she's got aging parents, she's got a younger sister, so she's got the balance. She is the balance between, like, she's got to make sure her younger sister is safe and is imbued with the right value sets and the right sort of awareness of herself and her emergence as a woman, and and having a bit of self-awareness, but also is also bearing the weight of her aging parents and the responsibility. They're still working and trying to care for them too. And you can see she's in a constant state of tension between those two things. So she looks forward to her relationship and getting married as a potential alleviation from the weight of all that. And so she's kind of like in this fixed emotional state where she's locked everything down and there's a glimmer of hope in front of her. And then twofold, that's given her both the ability to all of a sudden burden the situation, sort of bear the burden of the situation with like squared shoulders and a proud countenance. Like I'm going to walk through. I'm not going to bow down. Like I'm not going to relent. This needs to be, we've got to fight. We've got to do stuff.
Yeah.
If she was in any way a pampered child, the outcome would have been very different. If she was if she was already married, she would have behaved differently. Do you know what I mean? Because she was set in that, already in that sort of state of emotional preservation, for a better word, she was prepared to be able to take on the pressure. It didn't make it any easier, but she was already in a sort of a state of like alertness and awareness around these things. Because her father was a very big part of her life, and she had a younger sister, so she could empathize with the situation almost like, immediately. She was there. And I think the writing around that is brilliant, like really, really brilliant. Going through the story, you're kind of not sure whether it's this or whether it's that, whether it's this person or whether it's that person. Like I said, I was poking and prodding and trying to find the patterns and the clues and things like that. And then the moment in that jail scene, the way he was talking to them, he wasn't in any way thinking that he shouldn't be there. He wasn't talking like he should have been anywhere else, if that makes sense. So he wasn't hopeful that they were going to get him out. He was just matter-of-factly talking them through, but his behavior was very much of a man resigned to the fact that he is where he should be because of things that he's done, which led me to believe that he'd actually done it. And that was really grounded in to the fact when they were trying to bring the young daughter into the courtroom to identify him, to prove beyond whatever measure of doubt that they were trying to prove beyond, the level of her trauma kind of related to the fact that she did not want to face the monster again, if that makes sense. And then the shot where he was standing there with his face down behind the thing, waiting, but he could hear what was going on the other side. That was the countenance of a man, a resigned man. Do you know what I mean? That was like, yes, what's happening on the other side of that is because of me. He wasn't like trying to stay strong in the moment. It was no, yes, like he was resigned in his body language. And again, because I'm looking closely at body language, trying to learn and understand and pick at things, I'm paying really close attention to But I think it comes down to the brilliance of the acting too and the writing. I think they did that exceptionally well, and they're the only two instances that really gave it away for me. So when the uncle revealed that he'd kind of lied and had a bit of a dual story there, and she tweaked on and then got the truth out of him, and then I was like, yeah, for sure, right? Absolutely, for sure. I did have a moment where I was like, was he involved too? And I didn't realize, but obviously he wasn't, because it didn't come to pass. But I was never quite sure up until the final moment whether the uncle was involved as well. Although I did struggle with a little bit with who was actually an uncle and who was an uncle culturally. Because of the translations. But you know, I'm not unfamiliar with that, but it was a bit of a challenge to pick up on what was what. But the scene at the end. Now this is a tricky thing to explain because it's more feel than anything else. But the movie, like I said, really brought to light sensitive cultural issues, not just like Indian cultural issues, but around the world. Like child rape is not centralized to a particular demographic or geography. Like it happens everywhere. It's in it stems from some part of people's minds where they feel they have to perform those kind of acts. It handled in the context of that scenario, it handled the cultural response well, you know, around how the general public responded, how the media, we haven't even touched on the media yet, but I think that's probably an essay in itself, to be honest, because the media can really exasperate a scenario like this and make it a lot worse. And it's called out, and it's beautifully done so, and very eloquently done so from a script perspective and a delivery perspective from the judge. And you could see that reporter going on a small little micro journey of herself, of realization that she's caught in a culture of this is what we do. The police are caught in a culture of this is what we do. The courtroom is caught in a culture of this is what we do. From a family perspective, both of the victim's family and her family, they're caught in a culture of this is the way it's normally done. And she has to stand and walk through all of that. So she's not just facing the legal system, she's facing the entire weight of the culture of her people in this scenario as well. And, you know, I thought that was just, again, so brilliantly done and beautifully handled, you know. But the end piece for me, now something that I really care about and have cared about for a long time with my daughter is, and coming back to that piece where we don't have a lot of deep culture here, but being married to a Japanese woman, they have a lot of deep culture. Like they like your culture, their cultures are very, very old, like thousands of years old. So I thought it was actually, so from what I understand, that ceremony at the end was a coming of age for the youngest sister. Now, you know, I don't know a lot about that kind of stuff. I guess the most modern contemporary might be the Disney movie Red Panda, where they celebrate the blooming of puberty and periods and things like that as well. And you know, that's something that I'm very open with my daughter about. We talk about that kind of stuff often, and I don't see it as necessarily the role of just her mother to explain that kind of stuff. It's a dual role. Her mother and I take on the responsibility of making sure that she's comfortable speaking to us both about that kind of stuff. But so one thing we've cared about a lot is making sure that she has a strong matriarchal kind of presence in her aunties, in my wife's friends, in my wife herself, to give her a frame of reference as to what it means to be a good woman. And it's not just women that suffer from the lack of this in Western society. It's men too, and I don't want to get into that in too much detail. That's, again, a whole nother essay. But I think the beautiful aspect of that ending piece is irrespective of everything that's just happened, there is still beauty in the culture of the coming together to celebrate these things. And the nature of, even the simple act of saying, hey, I can't be there, but, welcome to womanhood, because this is what it means. And this is a reality. And it's going to be both beautiful and painful, right? And I thought that was a nice piece. It didn't necessarily relate to the overall kind of story. But the key point in it, though, was the bringing together of the victim with her little sister to remind her of that there's still like innocence there. There's still she can still live her life and have the support of women and things like that around her. But she's had all that taken away from her. The dad says something really beautiful. I'd say it's beautifully scripted, but it's probably one of the key things that hurt me the most was up until it happened, she saw me as a dad. Now she just sees me as a man. And that's powerful. It's a real hard thing to consider, right? Like it's hard. That moment's coming. You want to be able to not control it, but you want to be able to guide that as best you can.
Yeah.
Because your children are going to go through pain. They're going to face situations that are going to be hard. You cannot protect them from everything. The most you can do is give them the ability to cope and provide them with a safe place to come home to. But if that's taken away, like even the reality that there are monsters out there, I mean, we had we spoke about Valley of Flowers. We haven't posted it yet, forthcoming. Yeah. But
the teaser.
Yep, that scene, the opening line in that movie, it's like what appears as a demon and what is called a demon is what is recognized as a demon exists within the human being himself and dies with us. And the truth is that the atrocities are performed for the most part, and it's not for lack of searching and trying to find these things, by humans, right? Like not by little like horned, tailed, winged fiends, right? Like, it's humans who perform these monstrosities. So that piece at the end where she envelopes the victim back into the fold of womanhood and tries to reinstate with her the security that comes with having people around you who understand was really, really important. That was a really important wrap up. And to me, that's that she couldn't have done anything more for that girl than letting her be present in that scenario to see women come around, something like that there is still beauty and culture here where we can come together and there is trust and there are values and there is togetherness. And that reinstating that in her after it has been completely stripped away. And that's why I think it's a really powerful piece at the end, even though, again, on the surface, it doesn't really come together. But well, that's how I looked at it. Like it was critical. It was the recompletion of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really
that word.
Yeah. That's a really beautiful take, man. That's
okay.
Really nice way to put it, man. It's definitely connects the dots, and it does give hope, to what sort of happened. Because it is a strange situation with the way the movie sort of closes. Before that, it's sort of abrupt. If you just sort of cut it there, where she just found out, she's walked out. It's like, well, it kind of doesn't feel like an ending. Then it's sort of just like empty screen credits. So I do understand the challenge that the directors would have had to be like, can't just leave it like that. We need something tied together. We just sort of did it in that way. But yeah, I just thought it was a little bit too much preachy. Like it's talking to us when it didn't need to. I guess the tone was just different. Like I think on its own, as you said, it exists well like that. But I definitely understand the challenges that they had to sort of have that. But that's a great perspective, man. That's a great perspective to see it like that, to sort of tie it together. And it also. So I could just finish one more thing. I don't know, man. Just they had this thing. They sort of showed her life was not even perfect, even still, right? It was still pretty tough. Like society is going to cost her, like you see, she's the Alliance drive past and doesn't look, at him, and she realizes that it's still going to be hard for me to live my life. Like it's not a happy ending that everything is done now. He's in jail and I'm done with. There's a bit of respite for the lawyer. That's kind of happy that he gets acknowledgement again. So that's good to see that he's it's kind of like the other the actual uncle. He kind of was like, maybe he is kind of wrong in his ways to sort of think like that. There's a bit of reflection on that. I think we'll probably get along to our. I don't know if you had anything more to say about that, Sonny. Don't want to cut you off, man.
The internet's doing a good enough job of that.
You guys covered that
beautifully. Let's wrap up this amazing movie, man. With our good old D-scale, man. So. Yep, I'll just repeat it. It feels like it's not that new anymore, but we'll repeat it once more. We got disposable, disaster, defendable, dynamite, or dope. I'm gonna pass it to you, Mr. Dennis, first. Let me know what you think, man. Where does this scale?
Yeah, look, I mean, even so, if it don't to me just doesn't cut it even at this scale. I'd say that this is probably one of the best movies I've seen in a very, very long time. And we say we've spoken before about movies we enjoy, and we've given them fairly good ratings. In once we've watched them, sort of accounting for everything that we've seen and how we felt and what we've thought. We give them good ratings and things like that as well. It's hard. It actually genuinely, I give it a dope because it's the top level that we have. But I'll say honestly that it's hard to rate a movie like this because it'll sit in a higher echelon outside of any other movie, and it's like it's a little envelope of movies that will never come out of that. Do you know what I mean? It's just a special. It's just a damn special movie. Yeah, I think. So it's bloody dope, and I would say. I would say, yeah, dope, yeah, but
super dope.
with an asterisk, because it is heavy content. It's like, watch all the Ghibli movies. Don't watch Grave of Fireflies though, because you won't be able to unsee that movie again. You know what I mean?
No.
But it's like that. It's an amazing movie. If you feel that you can handle the subject matter, then I would say absolutely watch it. But that's why it has the asterisk. It's like, just be cautious.
Yeah. How about you, Sonny?
Look, I'm going to second all of what Dan said, and this is dope to me. But again, it doesn't really capture what the feeling I have towards this movie, because it's not sort of a film you go, I had a great time, or this is enjoyable. No, it's more about telling a story, giving you perspectives on a situation that hopefully you never have to experience, but gives you a degree of empathy for all the players in this case, and gives you an understanding of what must feel like, which I think serves a value beyond just entertaining and being enjoyable to watch, I think. Which is, hard to quantify. So dope. And I think in terms of a movie, it doesn't fall into a lot of the pitfalls that a film like this could fall into, whether it's preachy or having really black and white characters or any of that. I think it executes the job perfectly and with nuance and subtlety, which I really appreciated. And I think people should go out and watch this film because it is an experience and it is something I think we can all benefit from understanding. And, we as a society will have a role to play when these kind of things come up in the media and all of that and how we choose to respond to it. So I think there's kind of a social imperative to exposing yourself to films like this as well.
Yep. I think privilege is the word that comes to mind. It's a privilege to watch this movie.
Yeah,
right?
Precisely.
That's the only word that really kind of encapsulates the way that I feel.
No, I'm on the pretty much same boat. It's for me, I think the thing that is special to me is like this is such an ambitious movie to do and such a courageous take to do it in this way because the subject matter can be done in a way that's definitely more entertaining, that's definitely more flamboyant, that's definitely more engaging. With maybe you can have more twists and turns, like you make it into a conspiracy thing to find out who is the actual killer. It could be something like that. No, it doesn't do any of that. It takes a completely fresh approach, which I respect so much, and it still makes it highly engaging. You're exactly right, Sonny. It doesn't go into preach land. It doesn't go to put the message above entertainment or actually good filmmaking, like basically 90% of Hollywood, which what it feels like at sometimes. Now in these days, it's just about, what message do we have? What agenda do we have? Let's push that. And then story comes after. No, this is very much, you can enjoy this movie as a great film, like a film experience because it does all the right things, script writing, awesome. Performances, awesome. Music, tone, everything is right there. It has a clear vision. It sticks to that and you appreciate it. Doesn't ever get off track. So there's nothing that I can really fault in that. But at the same time, the stuff you guys talked about with it having such a deeper social message, it's done in such a grounded and real way that you actually feel it. It's intense. It's not like conceptual. It's not like it's not. It is a hypothetical situation because we've not really experienced that kind of situation, been in her situation, but because of the way that she performs and they write everything together, it feels like you've just been through that experience with her.
Yeah.
That's why the shock at the end is just even. It has an even bigger impact because you're like, whoa, like wait, I'm so invested in this right now, and I don't want to see you heartbroken with everything you've been through. Now you're just taking me somewhere which I don't want to be. It's uncomfortable, but it's beautiful. So this is easily up there as one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. And I don't know if they're going to do another movie like this. Like I'm obviously not talking about sequels. This is not a movie that you would see a sequel for. But in terms of even this approach, I think it's just something that lives on its own in its own category, as you guys were saying, for a whole lot of different reasons. So definitely encourage if you've listened to this podcast and made it this far, check out this movie, get your hands on it. In whatever way you can. It's special. It's a good one. And one, might go down as easily one of my favorites for the year. So
agreed.
Well, that basically closes it off for us. Were there any sort of final thoughts before we wrap things up? Just quick ones by any chance? Did you have one more? Go for it.
I'm good, Dennis. Yes.
I will be quick-ish. So talking on the cultural, well, not really, I've got to try and put this correctly. Like the movies like this and Jana Ganamana, and they touch on sensitive subjects that exist within cultures of people, and I think it's wonderful that these issues are being brought to light through the medium of cinema to help reach the broader audience that these issues exist and they need to be addressed. And this is the scenarios that can surround them. And this is how people will respond. This is how your media responds. This is how your public responds. This is how the people involved feel. This is what they're going through. So please be kind. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And don't just take anything as what the media tells you. Don't just get caught up in the mob fervor. Think about what is going on and assess it objectively and only come to a conclusion once you know exactly what the hell is happening. For some reason, I've never got that sense in any legal movie that I've ever seen before now. It never drove me to think about this as being a broader social construct that we really need to consider. Whereas I've seen 2 movies, in a language that's not even my own, even though I learned later there was like actually 5 languages in there, that has made me think deeply about these issues. And I would say that these at the very least, this movie is the kind of movie that should be shown at year 11 and 12 schools around the world to go, this is the scenario. This is how it plays out. This is how the court reacts. This is how the media, why do you think they behave that way? Assess it, analyze it, come up with your own conclusions, objectively understand this movie. It's a beautiful case study, visually represented, of a very realistic scenario that could happen to fucking anybody, anywhere in the world, ever. And it should, as far as I'm concerned, be elevated to that level of this is a human education piece. You know what I mean? It's not just addressing some political things. It's like, no, this is this needs to be understood. Yeah.
No.
That's
the point. It's a really, really great point. And just to further on that point, just builds empathy for the people around the situation.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thing. Like we don't often think about, what's the inside of, the insides that people have, like the daughter, the mother, the, friends, whoever's there, like, that's something we don't see that often. So
that's right. Well, with the desensitization that like social media and things like that bring to our youth at the moment, they're losing their ability to empathize unless it's through a screen. So we need to shock value may be the only way, And I wouldn't call this movie necessarily shock value, like a shock movie, but it would definitely open their eyes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot again. This has been an awesome episode. I'm glad we got to cover this movie, guys. It's pretty special.
Great.
And all right, guys. Well, till next time. We'll catch you guys.
Catch you guys.
See you.
Bye.
Guys.